We
Shit,
live? Okay.
I click. I
Okay.
just click.
All right. No problem. No problem.
Hi, AJ. AJ, nice to have you. Nice to have you on the on my channel. You need to give us some updates. But well, maybe introduce yourself. So your channel is PTE, and you are actually back on YouTube, right? You were banned. What happened, AJ?
Yeah, I was banned because I work for a company. Like I'm like a civil servant, and somebody must have told my bosses what I do. They saw my channel. I got taken in for disciplinary, and my channel got demonetized. My bank accounts got frozen, so I had to stay low for the last couple of months.
They did
Um,
freeze. Can you just repeat? They froze your bank account because
yeah,
they could relate. They could link you to these YouTube channels. Is that real? It seems like so surreal.
yeah, it's real. Unfortunately, it's happened to a few people, but it's happened to me because I'm from UK, and they do that in UK. If you kind of talk about disinformation, talk about Ukraine and stuff. So, but yeah, it doesn't matter now. So what I've done is I've left my job now, so I've got another one. So, and what I've done is I've also opened a new bank account, a new Google account as well, and I opened it as my missus's name. So I've opened my Google account and a joint account using my missus's name. So hopefully that should cover me. They shouldn't be able to find me.
But
So
technically, AJ, technically, how did they get to your bank account? I mean, what was the procedure? How do they knew? Okay, they find out about your YouTube
yeah, so
channel.
yeah, I work for the government. So when I was for disciplinary, I had to give them all the information. So I told them my YouTube channel and had to give all my details, my Google account and everything as
And
part
then,
of
but
the.
how did they get to the bank account? My question is somehow.
So the Google account is linked to your bank account. So
Okay.
when they have access to the Google account, and obviously they must have sent email to YouTube, and they found the bank account linked with it, and they closed. Yeah, they closed that.
That is quite scary. But you see how ironic. And when it comes to this, by living in China, I'm more safe. I mean, really, I think just imagine how those independent journalists. I mean, like you and I. I mean, you're doing that on the side, but I'm trying to make some kind of living there. But basically, imagine if you are only independent journalist and you actually rely on those incomes, very small incomes. You need to be a very big platform in order to make a decent living, right? But then they can cut off everything overnight. So in reality, what we do, I mean, some of us they do self censorship because you have no choice. And in some countries, I think probably among the most dangerous countries right now, it's not in the US, it's actually the UK and Germany, right?
Yeah. UK is very dangerous place to live because they can sanction you. They can close your accounts and stuff. So I didn't think it happened to me, but unfortunately it did. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still not gonna. I've been online on Twitter a lot for the last couple of months, and I wasn't allowed to say anything on YouTube to let people know because obviously I was under disciplinary, so I had to keep quiet. And
Okay, okay.
so this is my first online live chat in a couple of months, I think. So like I said, I've left my job. I've opened a new bank account, and the Google account is under my missus's name, so they can't find me anymore. So hopefully that will work, and I can carry on making videos again.
It's dramatic. I think somehow this can be an incentive. When they hit you hard, there are two reactions. One is actually you lay low and you're like, well, maybe that's not my fight. Some people actually they double up. It's like because they're coming after you, and you just realize that we are heading towards a fascistic state. That
Yeah,
if you speak out, then it gets dangerous, and we need to do something about this. because it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that this is what we need to tell people. You see, people they feel disconnected because, well, it's Assange. It's not tangible. Well, he's in prison, but and then they start freezing accounts and so on. But what people need to understand is that now it's AJ. Now it was Assange. Gonzalo Rira. I mean, next time it's going to be you. When they start seizing your account, when you look at the direction where the new world order is going, World Economic Forum, digital currency, well, they go. It's going to be so much easier for them to go after your money. And they normalize things slowly. They've been normalizing whitewashing Nazis. They
Yep.
start to normalize seizing assets. They seize like Russian assets, but
Yep.
private people, right? But then also Canadian citizens, British citizens, German citizens, like journalists that are actually German journalists that are in the Donbass right now.
Yep.
They seize their assets, not only their own assets, but also their parents' assets. Because she was this journalist in Donbass. She was getting some fees on through her father, and actually they froze her father's account. And you see the things that people they need to realize that it's not only us. After, at some point, they'll come after everybody. So this is, people should fight. And sometimes, when it comes to freedom of speech, we should actually fight even for people that we don't like, that are suppressed when it comes to freedom of speech, just because we are next. And this is the mistake that many people did. I have an example. Remember when it came to Trump, there was a canceling of Trump, and they canceled lots of right-wing accounts. All the left-wing, they were like, oh, it's okay, but it's Trump and so on. The next thing, the left and far left actually got suspended, canceled.
Yep.
And this is why people, they need to stick and be consistent. It doesn't matter. It's not your fight, but in general, that's the last thing we have. Once we don't have access to, already we don't, they shadow ban us. I think you experience shadow banning, right?
Yep.
My channel cannot grow because of the shadow banning. So I'm stuck. But somehow it's growing slowly. But then what is ahead? We're not even at war. What is ahead? I mean, people like us will be completely suppressed. At worst, we go to prison.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the escalation with UK.
Yeah.
We might
Okay,
be involved.
escalation. Yeah, like what is going on with the UK? But there's two things, right? Someone I don't remember who said about sending troops, but then Sunak came right after. But how do you see that? He's actually, Sunak came and he said, oh, it's not what we are going to do. How do you see that?
Well, obviously Sunak had to say that, but you have his own defense minister. His own defense minister says that they're going to be UK troops in Ukraine, training the Ukrainian troops in Ukrainian soil. There'll be, he said he's gonna send ships to the Black Sea. So this is his own defense minister, and I think Sunak, being Sunak, obviously he was probably getting lots of heat from a lot of people. So Sunak had to play it down. But this is definitely happening. When your defense minister says these things are happening, it normally means these things are happening. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
so
Let,
it's
let's
definitely
start
happening.
with
I think Sunak will probably try and say no, deny it. So no, it's no. We don't have boots on the ground. But officially, UK has not said it's a war. But unofficially, there is UK troops on the ground, and there will be a major escalation if UK troops are being killed. People will ask questions, and then if UK troops kill any Russians, then obviously that will escalate things as well, and things will escalate with UK, maybe NATO, I don't know, but yeah, things are not looking good, unfortunately.
Yes, I have the impression that it's so to prepare in case some British troops die, or if actually some already died. I was thinking maybe that's another possibility. Imagine if some troops died, well, somehow you need to prepare, you need to explain that. So somehow, it's like a bit of delayed notification. Oh, by the way, we have troops on the ground, but we all know there are plenty of troops. It's just the question is that are they very much on the front, or are they actually on the back, close to Lviv, to Kiev, and not so much on the front? I don't know.
I think there's a place in Ukraine where there's no Russian rockets going. It's near the border between Poland,
Yeah.
Romania. There's a little corner area just on the um, southwest of Ukraine, just under Lviv, and that area has not been bombed by Russia. And the reason that area has not been bombed by Russia is because that area is very heavily um, armored with lots of anti-aircraft missiles and guns coming from Romania, coming from Poland, and even in Ukraine. So that area has been heavily armed, and that is the only part of that Russia cannot hit with missiles. And I read a report that Russia managed to hit some installations inside that area last week, but that was not missile attack. That was basically troops going in and sabotaging some missile silos and things like that. But that area it is where all the mercenaries go. They train, all the weapons go there, and from there then people get transferred all over Ukraine. So that area is a very hot spot, and I think that's where the British will go to. um, I would have loved to show my viewers a map where it is exactly, but I think yeah, I don't have it on me at the moment. But you can take my word for it. It's right on the west side of Ukraine, just under Lviv. There's a very heavily armored area there, and I think that's where the most of the British troops, not just British, but NATO troops are there, American troops are there, Abram tanks are there, and it's a very heavily armored with all the there's hundreds of anti-missile systems there. So that's one area that Russia has not been able to penetrate, and I'm pretty sure that all the British troops are there. The talk about going into the Black Sea, I think that's just codswallop, to be honest, Angelo, because Black Sea is pretty much controlled by Russia anyway. Any ship going into the Black Sea, any British ship going into the Black Sea would be sunk straight away. And so I don't think they're going to be sending any ships. But I think there are troops there training Ukrainians, and they found that little area in the west of Ukraine. That's where they are. But
I, wa- I
yeah, go
wanted
on.
to
Sorry.
share something with you. This whole thing about whitewashing this article about Politico. Did you see this? Do you see just this article about, fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi? It is interesting how they are combined actions on
Yep.
whitewashing the Nazis. I'm really shocked from everywhere rewriting history. They are
Yeah.
panicking. It's going so fast, up
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
extent that actually they are almost like blaming the Russians for Nagasaki and Hiroshima nuclear
Yeah.
bombs. Oh, are you still there, AJ? Your microphone is can you switch on your microphone, AJ? AJ, I think we have a slight problems. AJ is not there. AJ, can you switch on your microphone? I'll try to connect with him. Um,
You hear me?
yes. You had your microphone switched off. I don't know for what reason.
All right. Is it working now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's working. So,
Seen Netanyahu recently in an interview. He said that Hitler didn't want to kill any Jews. He was one of the Muslims that went to Hitler and persuaded him to do it. And it's something ridiculous. But you have all the world leaders. You have obviously von der Leyen saying in a speech recently, she said, "We don't want nuclear bombs to be hit onto Japan by Russia again, and she uses her words very carefully to make it sound like it was Russia that dropped the bombs in Hiroshima. And what the hell are these Nazis doing in Canada? I mean, I really wanted to go on and chat about this on my own channel, but you have
Yeah,
this Nazi on Canadian Parliament, and everybody's standing up and cheering and giving him whistles, and he's like throwing his fist up in the air, and you have Zelensky throwing his fist up in the air. And what happened to all of these? What happened to all of these newspaper articles? If you say anything about Nazism in Ukraine, they
or
they
you know,
yeah, they normally say something like, "Oh no, Zelensky's a Jew. There is no Nazis in Ukraine." So why was a Jew saluting a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament? Explain to me that. I mean,
AJ, why don't you calm down? You are gonna kill my channel. Why don't you say NAZI? Try to say NAZI, or just
oh,
try.
so yeah,
Those guys. The algorithm is gonna kill my channel. They're
sorry.
gonna.
I just got back from a
Oh my
ban,
god!
so
I was like, every time
I
you
just
say it, I'm like,
I, I
I'm
just feel
just
like
trying. No, but this is important for people to
yeah.
know that it's like this track. They get the demonetized the channel. Then there's less views. It gets so complicated.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think we need to try ways just to explain. But I mean, NAZI. Especially the Canadians. What you see, it's the whole operation, Glad operation, paperclip operation. Are you familiar with that, AJ? With the
Yeah, I am. Yeah, somebody said on the channel this happened during Yom Kippur as well. So yeah, I just cannot believe the Canadians, all of them are just standing up, giving a standing ovation. But I have a few questions. First of all, what the hell was he doing in Canada?
oh
Secondly,
yeah.
where is the vetting? Do nobody do any vetting? Number three, does nobody use any brains? Like when you have somebody from the Second World War fighting the Russians, he's obviously on the NAZI side, right? So
Yeah.
people in the Canadian Parliament, it just shows how naive and just out of touch and brainless they are. It's just beyond
Uh,
belief, you know.
but I would say at the highest level, they all knew. Actually, it's a provocation. It's probably a test. They're testing the ground on the acceptance of NEZI, right? I think it's part of the test. But they've been doing this gradually. You see, the thing is that you go bit by bits. Oh no, there are no Nazis. Oh yes, there are Nazis, but yeah, but they're not the same Nazis back in Hitler. Nazi now is like it's a style. It's the same as clothing. You have a style, but you don't necessarily are into the genocide of other people or racist supremacy, uh, and then slowly, and then it gets to, oh well, but the real baby eaters are the Russians, and then somehow you shift it a little bit, and then somehow maybe in 10 years from now, that's a possibility. You will have movies, Hollywood movies, that will make the Nazis the new cool. That there's nothing new. That's how you shape the brains of people. And you can see actually there's a in actually in Ukraine you have some Nazis that were active in Maidan in 2014. They actually hired those Nazis to make movies of gangsters. So
Mm.
what they did in Ukraine, they prepared the kids by the kids were watching those movies. Oh, you know what, those Nazis are cool because they are, they look good, they have muscle, and they are the local gangsters, and they get all the girlfriends. You just have to find someone that looks like Brad Pitt, and that plays the roles of a Nazi, and then somehow being a Nazi becomes the new cool. uh, so you see, I think that this is what is happening for
Mm.
us, and it's dangerous. I think it's
Yeah,
dangerous
yeah.
to normalize this ideology, and I do think that this might uh, we might get it back. It's like Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Well, I have to tell you something, Angelo. I live in UK, And everywhere I go in London, I find swastikas on buses. Find swastikas on walls, garages, outside people's shops. There's obviously something going on, and I don't know if these are maybe undercover Ukrainians doing it or somebody else, but there's swastikas everywhere. And there was one particular video on YouTube. You can search for it in YouTube. There was one Ukrainian guy who was drawing a swastika on a shopping center on the floor. So obviously, luckily, somebody managed to stop him. They called the security guard, and he got arrested. But there are people drawing these swastikas everywhere in UK, and they're trying to they're trying to normalize it. And I think we have a generation who's completely lost, Angelo. We have a generation who's completely woke. They don't care about what happened in the Second World War. They don't know much about the history of Nazism. They don't know about what the Germans did, what the Japanese did to the Chinese, for example. A lot of kids nowadays are too messed up. They're more worried about their own identity than worry about history or what Sun and NAZI did, and that shows. The young generation, they don't care. They don't care about the past. They only care about themselves. They only care whether they're a man or a boy. They only care whether they want to go to a male toilet or a female toilet. They just don't know. So we're living in a really messed up generation, and this is why I think they are normalizing a lot of this stuff from the past. And
I don't know if you, AJ, I don't know if you watched my last YouTube roundtable. Actually, I had Alex Christopher in. I was actually getting into this topic. Why there's this whole deconstruction of human being? The detachment from family values. Now people just end up alone just because we don't have those strong family values. You deconstruct the human being in terms of identity, sexuality.
yeah,
Now it's bad to love your own country because that's what they teach you. They want you to be globalist. Basically, it's bad. It's fascist to love one's country.
yeah,
The
I
love,
can yeah,
attachment to religion.
I can
And
explain to you why that is if you want. I can try and explain to you.
yeah, well, actually, I kind of had the answer, but Alex K, he said it very clearly. Actually, was like, that's it. It was so simple. They want to isolate people. So basically, you don't have any attachment to anything. So you just become a slave labor. Like you have to work hard, and and you are enslaved. Then you take drugs. You are addicted
Yeah,
to porn and Netflix, and when you are like this, you just a consumer. That's what they want us to
yeah,
become.
yeah. He's
Consumer.
right. He's right. But I can tell you, I can add a bit more to that.
Yeah,
So it all started with capitalism. So they found out in the past, maybe 50, 60 years ago, there used to be just men working hard, and they used to have families. Women were at home looking after the kids, making babies, and men were basically going out into the workforce. So it was like that maybe 50, 60 years ago. So what what these capitalists decided to do, they decided, they need more people into the workforce because they wanted to stop
absolutely.
they wanted the wages to stop growing. So the one way to stop the wages from growing, if they
Get
increase
woman.
the workforce with women. so
Exactly.
so this is why feminism has grown. They asked a few feminists, go out there, spread our message that women can do just as women can be just as good as men. They need to do exactly what men can do, and we need more women in the workforce. So feminism risen over the last 50 years or so, only because the capitalists wanted more females in the workforce. So what you
Yeah,
have now, you have wages. If you notice, the wages have been staying the same because there's so many people on the workforce, and the only thing going up is inflation, like costs, cost of oil, inflation, and things like that. But the wages are the same. That means the companies do not have to give too much on in terms of the wages. Only thing that they do have to give is like inflation, but that's fine as long as wages don't go up.
yeah,
So this is
but
so there's more to it as well. There's more to it. So there's the capitalists decided to they just want more women into the workforce. And what's happened is there's some problems because back then in the 50s and 40s and 50s, there was a lot more women at home looking after the kids. And you also had a family structure, and also, people were having more kids at the time because things were very inexpensive. You can buy a house very cheap. So you can afford to have more than one kid. You can afford to have 4 or 5 kids in the past. But now, couples can't even have one child, let alone two, because it's so expensive. The mum can't stay at home because she has to go to work, so she has to hire a nanny. And the cause and effect of all of this has basically means depopulation. In the West, there's less people getting married, less people having kids. And even if you are married, you can't have many kids because you're both working hard, you're both trying to make a living, and your kids are basically growing up fatherless and motherless. And a lot of these kids turn out to be narcissists. And one of the ways you become a narcissist is if you don't get enough love from your father and mother. And a lot of these kids are growing up in a loveless household. And this is why they're feeling a lot of these kids, they've got a lot of anxiety issues, mental health issues, because they've not had the love and nurturing from a young age, because the mom and dad are out working, and these kids, they don't have siblings as well. Most of them are one child siblings. So when you grow up with no love and nurturing, you basically turn out to be a narcissist. Basically, you grow up to not know what love is like. So this is why a lot of people nowadays, they find time alone. They rather look at porn, and they rather play games because they don't have the love and nurturing that people did 50, 60 years ago. And uh, and the problem with the effect as well, this has completely destroyed capitalism. So one cause of this is, it basically means people are having less babies. So this is a disaster for capitalism. The reason they wanted to put women into workforce, right, is because they wanted to put more people on the workforce. But what's happened now? There's less people in the workforce because your population is shrinking. So this has become an absolute disaster for the capitalists. However, there are people who run these kind of WEF, who are saying that there's too much population in the world. And and I think another reason why they're really confusing these kids right now, because they want to destroy their identities. These kids, they don't know whether they want to be male or female, and they want to destroy their identity so much that they want to reduce population as well, because a couple of people from the WEF said that the world has grown too large, it's taking up too many resources. So this could be another reason why they are also trying to reduce population by destroying this generation of kids, so they don't have marriages, they don't have kids, they're all messed up, or, mental health and stuff. And I think that is reducing the population. What they're not happy about is countries like China and India, who are growing and growing, like 1.4 billion people, and that's completely destroyed their plan, because all of these depopulation and all this wokeness is mainly happening in the West. So these capitalists are destroying their own economy, they're destroying their own culture in the West. But while you have countries like China thriving because they're not into this wokeism, and you see how kids are very, very successful in China, and not many are into kind of drugs, not many are into identity politics. So I think that this is one of the reasons why the West is absolutely panicking right now. All of these feminism, all of these ideologies, wokeism, it's all backfiring on them, absolutely backfiring. And I think all this NAZI stuff that's happening in Canada is all related. If you think about it, it's all part of the big picture. Go on, over
Right.
to you.
Yeah, AJ, I want to add to what you said just before. So they wanted women to become like a workforce, but it's really important just to understand that. Okay, that's good for free. So for some women, just maybe for freedom, and basically we're not attached anymore to the man. That's one side, which is might be positive. But what people need to understand is that women coming on the workforce, it actually put pressure on the wages. So the real wages actually went down. The real wages, I'm talking about, inflation adjusted wages. So basically, You had the woman coming to the workforce, but somehow before the man was alone, he could work, and woman could stay at home, and together they could raise 4 kids and buy a house. Now they both work, and some of them they have a hard time just to maintain a house, and some of them they decided not to have kids just because they cannot afford. And I want to share with you this graph. This is really important. You see, 1980s. And actually, I think this movement started already in the 70s. You know, the feminist movement, like it
Yep.
was very strong 60s, 70s, right? Then you see the 80s, 1980s. You have two lines here. One is the real wages. Let me adjust a little bit. Okay, so you have productivity. This is this one, 159. So you see, it starts from 1980s, that's 100%. Productivity raised to 160, and then wages to 113. So people would not get their share of productivity, meaning where does the difference go? It went into the pockets of the globalist elites, the
Yep.
rich. And basically, people got poorer. That's very important, because you need to look at the disposable income, what is left at the end of the month,
Yep.
and need to adjust to inflation. That's what people need. They need to understand that, especially right now, they're telling us the inflation is 5%. Well, the
Yep.
way they calculate inflation is the inflation for the rich. Inflation for the poor, when you look at how it's what we call the basket of expenses, basically, you have 30-40% that goes into your housing, and then you have 30% that goes into your food. It went up like 20%. So the thing is that if you adjust to the poor people, inflation for poor people was much, much higher. If your wage stays the same, well, you know what? You lost 20% of your purchasing power. You are
Yep.
poor by 20%. So I don't know how far we can go like this. I think people will start losing their home. You'll have distress. And I think it's part of the plan. Maybe you get lots of distressed assets, people going bankrupt, and somehow you have BlackRock that comes in and buy distressed assets. And that's the whole strategy of you will own nothing and you will be happy. And WEF, they say clearly that's what they want to do, really. You will have no ownership, and it's all going to be rental. Whatever,
Yep.
assets will belong to those big corporations, multinational corporation, but you will just rent. You will own nothing.
Exactly. So the government tells everybody we've got 2% inflation, and all of this compounds, right? So you have
Yeah.
2% plus 2% plus 2% per year. But we all know that 2% is a made up figure that the government tells you. The true figure is much higher, because if you look at house prices maybe 30 years ago, house prices for in UK, in London, average was maybe 10 to 20,000, maybe 40 years ago, because my parents bought a 5 bedroom house for only £5,000 at the time. And now house prices, the same property is now worth, eight, 900, maybe like a million even. So inflation has not gone up by 2%, 2%. It's actually gone up by much higher, because if you look at everyday goods, even a packet of crisp when I was in school, they used to cost like a couple of pennies. Now it's almost a pound. It's just things are going up not just by 2%, but house prices is going up by over maybe 1,000 or maybe more percent. And now it's come to a point now where if you are married, a man and a woman, and you're both working, your salaries together is not going to be enough to buy a house. People are just can't afford it anymore, especially in London. You can forget about buying in London, because these house prices have gone way, way too high. And one of the biggest causes of divorce as well is money. So when you have two couples, a man and a woman, fighting over money because everything is so expensive, and you have a lot more couples now fighting over money and getting divorced over money. 50, 60 years ago, it was never like that. People were fighting over other things, but now the biggest cause of divorces, is because of money issues. Second is cheating. So that tells you a lot of things. Is money is the number one cause, and capitalism has completely failed. It's just they put women into workforces, and I know a lot of women who are absolutely fed up of going to work every morning, and life for a woman is pretty difficult. A woman, she has to put her makeup on, get her hair done, get her nails done. A man doesn't need to do that because we are programmed to go out and grind and work hard, while a woman is not programmed to grind and work hard for the rest of her life. She's there to nurture kids, and women are there, for other things. And this is why it's a partnership. When you get married, you both have a partnership. You do certain things, and she does certain things, and the male and the female roles are pretty much, ever since history, ever since the dawn of man and woman, it was always the same. It's only the last 20, 30 years you've seen the rise of feminism. And what's caused this is basically now you have women taking up a lot of jobs that men used to take, and there's a lot of men who are now, you know, uh, there's a lot of men who are kind of homeless or they don't have a job, because one of the problems that feminism does is when a woman works and she makes her own money, that's her money. Because that's how women have been programmed over the last 100 years. So if a woman makes money, that's her money. But when a man makes money, it's everybody's money. He shares it with his wife and stuff like that, because that's how we are. So a woman will always want to date up. So if a woman is successful, she's not going to want to marry somebody who's got a job or earns less than her. She's going to want to marry somebody who makes more than her. So everything's kind of messed up. All the gender roles are messed up. All the
Yeah.
and this is why there's so many single people out there. And if you go to YouTube, you will see so many channels about red pill. You will see so many channels about, you know there's a data that's 45% of single people at the moment. And it's crazy because we are living in a world of social media, right? We are living in the world of Tinder, social media. So why are there 45% of people around the world single? It's crazy, right? 'Cause,
But
this is the time where everyone should have been going out, meeting. People can't because, you know, every we as a human race have become more lonelier than ever,
absolutely.
compared to what we were 40 years ago. 40 years ago, there was no dating apps, there was no social media, but marriage rates, and couple rates were in the 80s and 90s. But now, women are looking for the top 1% or top 2% of men, and they're not gonna. You just look around YouTube and you see a lot of channels. Women are like, they've got so much power nowadays, and they're just looking for the top 1%, top millionaire, top billionaire, and men are just, basically homeless. If you're a man and you divorce, you have to give away half your property, and a lot of these men are really really depressed. The highest suicide rates is in men as well, by far. Men are killing themselves more than women at the moment. So everything is just gone completely crazy because of all of these riots. Because all because the capitalism wanted women in the workforce, and everything's just gone crazy. And now you have the added wokeism as well, that you add into it. And this is why I don't feel, I feel
Yeah.
completely sad for society right now. Angelo, over to you.
AJ, I think also women actually are suffering much more than men when it comes to gender, this gender identity stuff. I mean, just to give you an example, you have men, I don't know how to call them, but they're competing against women. Then you have those men transvestites that actually go into the bathroom of women. I mean, just there's some quite. I mean, and there women are suffering out of that. I mean, men, we less picky. I mean,
Yeah, we
but
are less speaking, but
it's
women won the top 1%, and a lot of women.
yeah.
There's another stats I saw. 80% of people in the West, we're talking about America. 80% of women are going to be end up single, with a child, with no man. by 2030, and this is because people are, you know, yeah, it all goes back to, basically when you're a child, you have no nurturing, you have no love. So a lot of kids are growing up into narcissists. They become used to being alone. You have social media, which is making you think that the grass is always greener on the other side. So people are breaking up for the smallest things, Angelo. People are, even if you have a
Yeah,
wife and a child, you'll have one argument and that's it. The man is out the door and the woman is left with the child. It's crazy at the moment. And the problem is, you know, women will also suffer as well. I think when this economy starts to go, starts to crash, men will suffer, but women will suffer even more because, back then in the 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, when the economy was down, it was up to the man to go out and grind and work hard and make a living for the family. Women now, not only do they have to do that, they also have to look good as well. A woman loves to look good. She wants to do her hair, she wants to do her nails, she wants to do her makeup. So she's got a lot more expenses, than a man. Us men, we don't need to worry about that because we're made to go out and work and grind and get ourselves dirty. That's why when we wake up, we just, brush our teeth, put our clothes on, splash some water in our face and go off to work. But women, they have to get up really early. They have to put makeup on for like an hour or two. They have to decide what dress to wear, and they're going through and trying different dresses on, and then they put one on and go to work. They have to wake up really early. I mean, my wife used to get up at 4 a.m. to go to work for 8. She used to get up at 4. She used to have a shower. She used to get her makeup done, get her hair done. She used to decide what she's going to wear, and she used to leave. She used to leave the door at 7, get to work at 8, and then she, it's a nightmare. I mean, women cannot go out and work for the rest of their lives until they're 60 or 70. So I think with the economy crashing now, it's going to be really hard for women as well, because especially if you're a woman with a single child and you have no man to kind of be there to protect you and provide for you, you're going to be really struggling, because especially with all the inflation, everything's going up. And it's going to be worse when the government stopping social services. Because do you know how close United States came to the government shutting down? 2 days ago, the government almost shut down. That would have meant a lot of people would not got any paychecks through the door, and a lot of it would have caused absolute mayhem. And yeah, you see a lot. There's going to come a time when the government is just not going to be able to afford public services anymore, social services, because you have a huge balance, you have a huge debt. And United States is on a 33 trillion debt, and they're paying how much in interest? They're paying about 700, 800 billion in interest on that debt. And that's going higher and higher. And they're never going to reduce their military industrial complex. They'll never reduce that. So the only thing they're going to have to reduce is public services, healthcare, social services. So if you are a woman and you got a child, the government is just one of these days they're just going to say, sorry, you're on your own. We can't help you anymore. And
yeah,
um, and that's what's happening at the moment. And you see all these migrants coming in as well, all over the world. You have these, they have an open door policy. Migrants coming in all over Europe, all over United States. They're doing it because they want cheap labor, and also they want to recruit for the army, because nobody's joining the army, you see. So what they're going to do is they're going to get these migrants and they're going to say to them, you know what, you want citizenship, you have to join the army. And I think they're bringing in a lot of migrants. They also want cheap labor as well. And they're also looking at the future because they want a bigger population, obviously. So the more people, the more population you have. So these migrants will obviously have kids in the future. Their kids are going to go to school and hopefully become successful. So that's what they're banking on. And they just have an open door policy at the moment, and they're just laying everyone in. It's crazy, Angelo. The whole world is gone absolutely crazy at the moment.
but AJ, I think well, besides the economical side, that basically you get cheap labor, it's going to put pressure on existing labor and so on. I think it's a project of destruction of nation state. But additional to that, keep in mind that everything we are talking about, all those divisions, conservative, woke, and so on. Always, this is really important. I want to really stress this out. The strategies are divided and control. Okay, because the more they antagonize people, the more people do not focus on what is important. Is the class consciousness and the class struggle, right? Class consciousness means you need to understand that we are the 99%, and the 1% they are fighting against us, and they are dividing us over societal issues, over plenty of things, races, genders, abortion, all those subjects, because they need us to keep us distracted. If this does not work, well, they'll give us drugs. They distract us through football, porn, Netflix, or we are going to be in a like slave labor, just on a survival mode. That's the strategy. So really important, just to understand that the fight, really, if people understand, is 1% that are fighting against us, the 99%, and they are distracting us. But they need to deconstruct, they need to mess around they need to rewrite history, but mess around with the individual. And the individual, once you take away everything that puts a foundation around him, well, yeah, he doesn't have the heart to fight. If you don't believe in anything, you don't believe in family, in nation, in religion, you have no faith, and so on, what do you become? You become just a consumer, and that's what they want.
Yeah,
And that's the problem they have, is that they will not fight. Those people they have deconstructed will not fight in the trenches in Ukraine. The only way they got people to fight in Ukraine against Russia was to put that ideology, NAZI ideology, and then you get those guys are mad. What they believe in? They actually mixed up some beliefs of Walala. Walala is the Vikings. Vikings, they believe that they had warriors would, the biggest win for warriors would be to go to Walala, to paradise. So you get those Nazis. If you really look at the tattoos of those Nazis, not only they have the swastikas, but they have Walala written here. So
yeah,
you have those madmen, and that's what you need. So
yeah,
on one side, they indoctrinate those guys, and they become like really dangerous because
yeah,
they're just mad. Or they deconstruct the rest of the population, and those ones, they're completely lost. It's drug, it's decadence. I mean,
yeah,
that's what they want. They think it's a conscious decisions to be, and it's the new cool, right? To be part. Oh, you know what? Today I wake up, I'm a plant, or I'm a lizard. Or I can change through the day. I was a lizard this morning. Now I'm a flower, right?
yeah.
It's a
No,
new cool.
yeah, you're 100% right, Angelo. And when this news came out in the UK that United Kingdom is going to start sending troops to Ukraine, 50 years ago, even like 30 years ago, during Iraq war times, you would have seen a big population of British people protesting outside, saying, "Why are you sending troops to Ukraine? Why are you doing this?" Not even one, Angelo, protested about it. Because I was in central London the day they announced it. Only people I saw protesting were like trans rights or something. I think they were just walking around with placards saying I think LGBTQ rights or something. So I saw nobody protesting for these
Yeah,
troops going into Britain. So why is that? I mean, you're 100% right. They're keeping the British people stupid and dumb, and also, you know, British people have got a lot of things to worry about. They have to worry about when they're gonna put the next food on the table for their kids.
yeah,
They have to worry about whether they can pay the bills for the mortgage, for the gas bill, electricity bill, and also, if you don't have a family and you're single, you're worried about when you're going to get the next hit. Because drugs are so widely available in UK. You just walk down the street, ask anyone, and they'll give it to you. Everyone's doing it. It's crazy. They've just opened the borders. I mean, when in UK, I don't remember the last time I saw a big drugs bust. I mean, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, 2000, I remember lots of stories about, yeah, we did this big drug bust here, we caught some drug dealers here with kingpins. Nothing of the last 20 years, nothing. There's no stories about any drugs bust. There's no stories about catching any drug dealers. Police are just too busy with everything that's going on, and people are too desperate, and some are pretty much drugged up, and the rest of them are just playing their games or going into porn, like I said, or maybe going into other things. People don't care about what's happening in the outside world, and this is the society that these globalists wanted. So you don't have these protesters going out. So this gives a free rein to the government to do whatever the hell they want. They can declare war on Russia tomorrow. Nobody's going to care in UK. Everyone's going to be, walking around like it's normal. Nobody's going to protest. The government's got a free reign to do whatever the hell he wants, and I think that's what they wanted. They wanted to keep people dumb, stupid, or really unavailable to protest or do anything. And also, they're shutting people like me down. They're shutting me down. They're shutting other voices down. Recently, they shut down Russell Brand. I don't know if you remember Russell Brand. They
Yeah.
shut him down. They came up with some sort of rape allegations, which was 20 years ago or something. They did the same with Andrew Tate. They've done. There was a reporter who they've also sanctioned in UK. Anybody who actually spreads the message, they will just find a way to shut them down. And this is what they're doing. They keep the rest of them stupid and dumb, and the few people who have got voices, they just find ways to shut them down, and eventually, the government's pretty much got control over whatever hell they want to do, and that's the way we're going.
But again, I think I have the impression that we are hitting the point of, like the decadence of Rome, like they're completely desperate, So very often when you have a decline in power, you have the decadence that comes with it. So in terms of society, so, people, this general corruption. There are things that I'm seeing right now. I mean, I'm not that old, but I've seen a few things, right? But when I look at the US, but not only the US, in the EU, it's generalized. Von der Leyen, the scandal with the vaccines. We are talking about 30 to 40 billion euro of vaccines that were dealt through SMS. And I mean, we know this is all full corruption. But you know what? We didn't have that when 30 years ago. You didn't have that. I mean, really. Now it's just openly. Look at the Congress in the US. I mean, I can go one by one. Nancy Pelosi, how much she's worth? $150 million. Mitt Romney is worth $200 million. Vivek, this politician, is a billionaire. Trump is a billionaire. Biden is probably worth $60 million. Obama is worth $60-70 million. Well, you know what? Do they represent the people? No, they don't. But the thing is that they have legalized corruption. You know how you legalize corruption?
Yeah.
You rename it. You rename it lobbying. And lobbying, that's what you have in Brussels too. So this is a complete decadence, not only from corruption, but also on society as well. I mean, Epstein Island. Why there's a list of people that went on that island, and we know that they were using kids underaged there. But why they don't touch them? They are beyond the law. They write the laws. They control everything. And you know what? On our side, we do jaywalking, and we are fine. I mean, they come after us actually for doing things that we are doing a civic duty, AJ. I'm taking my time out of, it's 11 p.m. I could be watching Netflix, or I could go to the pub, have a beer, and I'm doing my civic duty. Just somehow, but it's a therapy too. I think you know what I mean. But for doing that, potentially in a few years' time, doing that would make me, they put people like me in jail. And they're doing that. If I was right now reporting from Donbass as an Italian citizen, I could potentially be in jail. Be put in jail, and back to Italy.
Yeah, so I got to tell you some bad news really for my listeners as well. I had some savings in my bank account, so I was going to use that to go to China, and unfortunately they've frozen my account, and I haven't got that money back. So
Oh
I'm
my.
kind of stuck in UK at the moment. So so they've frozen about, yeah, quite a lot of money in my account, and so I was going to
But
go to China
yeah,
basically, and
I just want to remind my viewers. So you challenge PTA,
yeah,
the world is gone mad, something like this, right? But you were active. You have 30,000 followers, and you were active up to almost 9 months ago, and then you had
yeah,
to stop. And
yeah,
you actually never appeared uh, physically. Basically, you never showed your face, but they managed to track you,
yeah.
your your identity, and basically they went after your bank account. And I think this is a big news. It's huge, huge.
Yeah. So what happened was my name was added to some NATO website first, and I think this was way back in January. And it was added, my channel, my name was added on a NATO disinformation site. And then I think somebody at my workplace must have seen my videos, and they told they told my bosses, and they called me in for a meeting. And yeah, they put me through a disciplinary, and I had to give all the information out. I had to give my YouTube channel, my Google accounts, and things like that.
Yeah,
And yeah, it just went on from there really. But yeah,
yeah,
but because I work for the government, obviously they don't allow they don't first of all, they don't allow anyone to go onto social media and talk political, and let alone talk political that doesn't agree with them, which is even worse. So so yeah, so but I'm not working for that job anymore, but I still have to kind of keep my identity secret, just in case. I think there's still a lot of things going on behind the scenes, so I have to kind of be extra careful.
yeah. But you see, AJ, what happened? Let's say, to give you an example, I mean, sensitive topics, COVID, vaccines. That's a sensitive. It's very dividing. But for example, Ukraine topic. The first ones to criticize. I'm talking about at the beginning of the SMO. We were hammered. We were so hammered. But I'm talking about family, people close to us, and so on. Now you see it's shifting. Now it's a 50-50. But back then, we were a very small minority, and we were completely hammered. And that's a strong stance to take, really. And it's very tiring. And now you know what, now they all understanding slowly. But in the meantime, how much shit we had to take. Sorry for the wording, but
Yeah,
and it's just crazy. But again, I think we need to tell people. See, one thing is to tell people about the news, okay, but it's only one part. But I think, uh wow. We need to be careful. What is it? Somebody's actually. We need to be careful because somebody's on the chat is using my name there. Anyway, no. So I was saying uh, that we not only we need to report the news, but one thing that we can contribute is actually explaining how we do, and the approach, actually giving the tools to people to do what we are doing. But it's a hard work. It's a hard work. It's a work of research, and but I think giving the tools, and what is our approach. We give the main framework, basically how the macro at the macro level, but really I think it's important just to give the tools to people.
yeah,
Question
yeah,
and where to find the information. I mean, the information we need to look at the decision level. Think tank papers. You can go to the Pentagon. You can go to archives papers and so on, and then you find those information. And luckily, we have government that actually give a high level of transparency. I don't know if you saw. I mean, recently I went into the UK, some UK archives, and it was. Are you familiar with the Operation Unthinkable by Churchill? Churchill,
yeah,
in May 1945, he wanted actually to attack the USSR. So
yeah,
basically, the war was won. USSR lost 27 million
Mm.
civilians and soldiers, and Churchill wanted to go after. So that you see, informations are out there, and those information actually, see the operation Inthinkable. You need to look really hard to find that, uh,
Yeah.
but it's out there.
Churchill
It's
was a
out there.
madman. He was an absolute madman.
Completely,
Yeah, he
completely.
said, at
Yeah,
the time there was a lot of Indians dying of famine in India, and do you know what he said? He said, "It's not my fault. Let them die because it's not my fault they're having lots of kids or something."
yeah.
He said something
This,
along those lines. Very racist. He's crazy, that guy.
you see, I'm going to say something which is a little bit controversial here, but I mean, who gives a s, right? There are some books actually about Churchill and Hitler that they were written by I would call a Holocaust revisionist, but he's actually quite a specialist. David Irving actually did a good book on both Hitler and Churchill, but he did homework really, and actually, even though he's hated by the mainstream, but many historians recognize that he had done a really good work when it comes to Hitler and Churchill. So when you read about Churchill was extremely bad. Actually, you know what? The one that wanted peace was Chamberlain, right? But
Mm.
you see, Churchill was paid by lobbyists from Czechoslovakia, and he was completely corrupt. Actually, he was completely bankrupt because he had a lifestyle which was just way beyond what he was making. He was actually a journalist, right? That's what he was selling his articles and so on. But he had a lifestyle, very lavish lifestyle with lots of servants and so on. But he was completely corrupt. He was actually bought by foreign powers, and Czechoslovakia lobby. They gave him lots of money because they wanted just to make sure that he would actually go against Hitler. So those are small details. I mean, people need to be really careful. Uh, Especially World War II. Things were not. I mean, I'm extremely anti-Nazis, but we need to remember that they were pushed. Somehow the West, especially the US, actually funded both sides. The US funded actually. You can check David Sutton. He was working for the U.S. government. He gives lots of proofs that actually the U.S. and the Wall Street was funding Hitler after World War One. I mean, just before World War Two, there was lots of transfer of technology and so on.
Yeah.
And then when Nazi Germany was about to win against the USSR, actually, that's when they started to do a Lend-Lease agreement with the USSR.
Mm.
And the USSR had been paying for a long time, decades, this Lend-Lease agreement because the US had been shipping, I mean, billions of dollars of weapons, and that's how the USSR won. Without the help from the West in terms of sending weapons, USSR wouldn't have won. So
Yeah.
you see, they've been funding both sides.
Yeah.
They've been funding both sides. So practically, what they wanted to do, Churchill wanted to do, like basically, because Churchill and the UK and US is the same, right? It's an extension. So what they wanted was to fund both sides, to get them both destroyed, and give the final blow to whoever was remaining. And that's why in May 1945, Churchill wanted to go against the USSR. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
How evil.
Yeah, it's crazy how things were back then. There's a lot of hidden stuff that's in history. Not many people tell us. I mean, what the hell are NAZIs going and living in Canada, right? So that guy in Parliament in Canada, he's not the only one. He's obviously got a lot of friends, and so what the
But
hell
you
is he
know,
doing in Canada? Who let them in? Who let him in? And what was he doing all these years?
what he had been doing something. His contribution, actually, his contribution for the war in Ukraine after, because they recycle lots of Nazis. I mean, collaborators from SS Galicia. uh, into secret services, and actually some remained. You know, the Gladio operation, some remained. Stepan Bandera, he remained in Europe, and at the end he was killed in Germany by the KGB. But people like Yaroslav Kun, what's his name? Hunka. He actually, you know what he was doing? He created a fund, an endowment fund. He was actually funding universities, the branch that was doing Ukrainian studies. So you see the strategy: you fund universities, and actually they are going to work for you, but for basically for the narratives they want you
Yep. Yep.
to have. So you know it's part of the shaping the perception. You rewrite history. You put money into civil society. You put money into universities. I mean, you know, it's basically shaping the whole thing. You make movies, and he was doing his part, but into subverting university. I mean, basically buying universities.
Yeah. So let's talk about some news about China, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening in China at the moment. So first of all, I want to talk about the national holidays that's going on, the National Day. And a couple of weeks ago, the West was talking about how China was going to collapse, and the economy is slowing down and everything. So now you see up to, I'm seeing reports, 2 billion train travel, 2 billion people, I mean, not people, but 2 billion tickets of train traveling all over China. And can you imagine
It's
the
madness.
money? Yeah, can you imagine the money that will generate from 2 billion ticket sales of trains? And people in China everywhere, they're just shocked. You know, 2 billion train tickets, and that could easily generate between 100 and 200 billion, right? I mean, depends on the train ticket, but I'm sure that if there's more demand, the train ticket increases in price, but you have to book it early or something. But if you book it last minute, obviously it's probably more expensive, because you have to, everything goes up. But and now manufacturing, Chinese manufacturing, PMI, they released manufacturing details last week. PMI has gone to 50.2. Last month it was 49.8 or something. And because it was 49.8, the West was saying, oh, manufacturing in China is slowing down, China's slowing down. But now it's
So
gone to
see,
50.2, and now everyone's
so
quiet. You don't see any stories anymore. You don't see any
it's just a
stories.
precision. Once this PMI is past 50, it's an expansion.
Yeah.
If it's below, it's a contraction. Right? Just
Yeah, that's
for
right. Yeah, so because it was 49.8 last month, they thought it's all contracting and China's going down, but now it's gone, it's gone to 50.2, and suddenly you don't see any China slowing down stories anymore. You don't see anybody saying anything. Last month there was so many YouTubers coming on saying China's about to collapse, blah blah blah. Oh God, same usual crap. But now you don't see any of that anymore. And this morning I saw um, the Indonesian high-speed rail, that they've just recently inaugurated, and there's a picture. There's a picture of of the Indonesian high-speed rail on the Western papers, and they're showing a really old picture of an old train. Very old train. They don't show the picture of the high-speed train. Have you seen that on
uh,
Twitter?
absolutely, I saw that actually.
Yeah,
I'm going.
yeah, and
I'm going to share.
anything to kick China with, anything they just feel so jealous for anything
Yeah,
good
yeah.
that's happening out of it. I mean, look at this picture. It's absolutely,
So
it's so
basically,
funny.
the right picture is on the right side, but they put an old train
Yeah,
to talk about the high-speed railway. I mean, just ridiculous. And actually, I do think they changed it. They had to change it because people were just laughing. But it gives you, it gives you an idea on the misinformation. You see
yeah,
what actually, I think it was BBC. You know what they did once? They did an article saying, "Oh, you know what? Now you don't enjoy as much as possible traveling around China because the trains are so fast. You don't have the slow trains where you can enjoy the scenery." I'm like, oh my God, what do you want? You want a cold train? I mean, what do you want? I mean, really, they can turn the most positive thing into bad thing. You
Yeah.
know, they let's say for Tibetans, they wish the Tibetans were all nomads and not having a house, so they would maintain their typical lifestyle. Wait, you know what? The typical lifestyle would give them life expectancy of under 40 years old. That's because I was in Tibet 30 years ago. And I tell you, you had, I don't know how many, but it was very large population of nomads. And you know what? I would talk to them and they had one dream was to have a house. And they were
Yeah.
tired of moving around. And the living conditions, you have no idea. I mean, really, they're going from, after World War II was under 40 years old. Now it's over 70 years old. But that's basic human right, you know. You see around the world, every single country around the world has seen its life expectancy going up,
Yeah.
except one country, the
America.
US.
Yeah.
And you know what? That means, that's what I want to explain to people is that when you have life expectancy going down, what does it mean? It means if you have kids, you kids are going to live a shorter life than you. Just let that sink in.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Your
mean,
kids are going to live a shorter life than you. Talk about human rights. That's human right. You know, the rest is all BS. It's all
yeah.
BS. And this is what, that's why in China it's very different. People, they're like, you know what, I want factual stuff, intangible freedom. Freedom. Name me what is freedom? Freedom to sleep in the streets, freedom to be addicted to fentanyl, freedom to die shorter, to have a shorter life. I mean, it's like, what are, that's not freedom. We
Yeah.
talk about decency. People are looking for decency, meaning
Yeah.
I want to put food on the table. I want to live, a healthy life. People, when you are in a state where the only way you can survive is by eating junk food all the time because you cannot afford fresh
Yeah.
food, you
Yeah.
know, is that freedom? I mean, come on, we have a problem. We need to redefine what is decency. Decency, that is a very important word. Decency. What people are looking for is decency. When you put people into slave states, survival mode, that's not decency.
I mean, you look around United States and there's pictures and videos of people going into stores and buying $0 purchases. You can call it $0. They're shoplifting basically.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it, and everybody is doing it. And if you go to San Francisco, majority of shops had to shut down. San Francisco was a booming had a booming downtown a few years ago, but now majority of stores had to shut down because people are going in, taking whatever they want, and walking out for free. Not and police not doing anything. And then you got the homeless issue, like you said, and but the main problem is healthcare. Over like how many people died of COVID? Was it like a million or something, 2 million? I can't remember exactly, but huge number in the United States because they couldn't afford healthcare, they couldn't go to the hospital, they couldn't afford to get an ambulance, and um, and this is why the death rate is going up in the United States. If you're a drug addict and you have an overdose, nobody's going to call you an ambulance, and the doctor's not going to treat you because the first thing they're going to make sure is you got health insurance. If you're homeless or you don't have any health insurance, what's the point of giving you like making you recover? And I think a lot of people
Mm.
are dying needlessly in the United States. Plus, you got obesity as well. People are eating, fast food. America is the biggest country with obesity. I mean, I think 40% of people are obese in the United States. It's crazy amount of people that are obese over there. And if you're obese, your heart rate, it's not good for your heart. It's not good for your body, and you're not going to live long because you got so much fat in your arteries. And it's too expensive to treat obese people. So what did they do? They kind of let them die, most of them. And I think, yeah, this is one of the reasons why the kind of age life expectancy is reducing in the United States, and also the crime. I mean, I've been even spoken about the crime. You can just walk down the street and you can just get shot in the broad daylight. It's
Yeah.
crazy over there, the crime, and people are getting desperate, and they're going to get more desperate as time goes on because people have less money now. People are struggling, and when people struggle, when people are desperate for food, they want to feed their kids, they will do anything. They will go out there and kill just to, just for food, just to feed their kids. So it's happening at the moment. It's not just in America, but also in UK, other parts of the Western world. It's happening in South Korea as well. Not many people know that it's happening. South Korea is an absolute mess at the moment. And yeah, South Korea is a problem that they've kind of put on themselves, because South Korea used to have a trade surplus with China for over like 20, 30 years. They used to have a huge trade surplus. They used to sell them chips, they used to sell them equipment. And South Korea, this is one of the reasons South Korea was so rich. They had a huge surplus. But this year is the first year South Korea has got into a deficit with China. The trade surplus with China is become a deficit and is going further and further into deficit every single month. And what South Koreans are finding out, they're having less and less money, and things are out of control in South Korea. The inflation's out of control, and they're not making the money as well that they did. And plus, you got this. They call him the Looney Tune, or Looney Yoon. They call him the Looney Yoon, and this guy is going around singing American Pie in front of all his
Yeah.
yeah, white mates, and he's
Rather
become
embarrassing.
he's become very anti-Chinese. He's putting all these sanctions on China. He's putting sanctions on Russia. He's sending weapons to Ukraine. This guy is doing everything he can to annoy China and Russia and North Korea as well. And he's so, I mean, I'm sorry to use the word, but stupid. But he's so stupid, right? I mean, look where South Korea is on the map. He's surrounded by China. He's surrounded by North Korea. He's surrounded by Russia. So wouldn't an intelligent person or intelligent prime minister look at what's surrounding him and try and make peace with your neighbors first, not sell your soul to the devils, and this is what this guy's done. He's gone, sold his soul to the devil, putting all these trade sanctions on China, antagonizing North Korea, antagonizing Russia. And for what? It's crazy. And South Korean economy is really in the downtrends at the moment, and they've stopped selling chips to China because they've signed up to this chip for organization, and they're not allowed to sell high-end chips to China. So they're obviously not getting any money from that. And because Chinese companies are not very happy about South Korea sanctioning them, Chinese companies have stopped buying goods from South Korea. They've stopped buying cars from South Korea. They've stopped buying goods because if you're going to sanction the Chinese, they're going to either make their own or get it from somewhere else, like from a friendly country. They don't mess around, and if you put trade sanctions on China, it's just going to backfire. It's backfired on the United States. Now it's backfiring on South Korea. It's also backfiring on Japan as well. Japan have also placed sanctions on China, and it's backfiring on them big time. Their currency is really collapsing. So you see, it's happening all over the world, Angelo.
It's sad. The thing is that you see on the front, on that front, in terms of manufacturing, trading, we need to sit down with China and somehow, I mean, negotiate and have a transition that is works for everybody. But right now, actually, on the, especially on the economical side, you cannot compete with China, just because, well, just think about it. In proportion, China has around, I mean, no exaggeration, probably around 10 times more science, math, engineering, and technology graduated than the US. China has around more than 4 million per year, okay, that graduated from those four fields, science, math, technology, engineering. The US, 500,000, okay, but in the US, 40%, around 40% are actually foreigners that go to the US and then leave. And out of those foreigners, many are Chinese. Probably the brightest are Chinese. So you see, you cannot compete, and that's why actually innovation is going much faster. Actually, it's exponential. So now the only place where they had, the upper hand with China was microchips, but now, because China, actually they entering into new paradigm. China, they might do a quantum leap there, because they're not selling. So the West is not selling the photolithography machines to make microchips. It's mainly this Dutch company called ASML, right? Now, actually, China might come up with new solutions, and might be even better than what is being done. And the West, actually, I heard figures that they thought that China was 10 years behind. Actually, China is probably more like 3 to 4 years behind. So you see that window of opportunities, it's shrinking. And every time, that's what Chinese say. They say, you turn a setback into an opportunity. So you see, I mean, China, they're obsessed with national security and self-sufficiency. The only thing that we were still selling to China, we talk about, I don't know, it's probably 50 billion per year. It's a massive industry. Well, the cheap alliance, which are four countries, US, Taiwan, Japan, and Korea, they are going to lose completely the market of China.
Yep.
And every time you do that, it backfires, because China has the mean. You see, because it's a centralized, it's actually, you have the state that actually come into come to help, if it's a matter of national security. So China, what they did a bill recently of $40 billion to be put into catching up of the microchip industry. And when China is putting up $40 billion, it's not going to be like waste and money laundering like you have in the US. This is going to be like hundreds of thousands of engineers going to the field of microchips, and it's going to go faster and faster. You cannot compete there, but somehow I think we need a transition. This transition to cities trap, where you either go to war, or somehow, small percentage of cases, there's no war. We need to make this transition, not to go into war, but somehow China needs to sit down, maybe a bailout, some type of bailout of the West, and do have a we the West need a soft landing. The problem is that we are going to do a hard landing, and especially with the de-dollarization. You see, before we had the dollar, we needed money, then we print dollar. Now we need a soft landing, because, and I think it's going to be good for China too. China does not want the West, and does not want the US to collapse. They don't want that. Nobody wants that. You know, they want to transition, yes. They don't want the free lunch that the US has, because that's a free lunch. So
Y-
somehow we need to sit down, and we need adults around the table, because when I look at leaders in the West, I'm like, this is a kindergarten. Baerbock, Trudeau, Macron. I mean, where did you find those clowns? I mean, really.
Yeah, a bunch of clowns. They probably went to the clown school of economics, or clown school of how to be how to be an absolute, mindless moron. How would I say? But going on with what you said, Angelo, I completely agree with you. But I think China was forced to have a high um, manufacturing and things like semiconductors, because 10 years ago China did not have a semiconductor industry. Yeah, they did have SMRC, and it was focusing on low end chips and stuff, but they did not have a high end semiconductor industry. And the reason they didn't have it is because 10 years ago the world was multipolar. Everybody was working with one another. Everybody was had their own industries they were specialists in, and everybody was buying stuff from each other, and that's what you call a multipolar world. And it was great for trade. And China did not want to antagonize the United States by building its own semiconductor company, so they thought, you know what, let's not antagonize the United States, let's kind of buy semiconductors, and I think they used to buy semiconductors worth 600 billion per year at the time. And what's changed? You have the Trump sanctions coming in, and that changed everything. Trump came in, sanctioned Huawei, sanctioned Chinese companies from buying high end chips. So China was pretty much forced to go into the high end chip sector. And all of these chip companies that are growing in China right now, they're all brand new. Most of them don't have any experience. Huawei doesn't have any experience. And they had to pretty much learn all of this from new. They had to hire a lot of ex TSMC guys, and they
Mm.
had to hire a lot of skills from United States even. And all of this stuff they've built over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years. So it's very, very quick, compared to United States. They've had the chip industry for how long? 60, 70 years now, maybe longer. And
Yeah,
yeah, in 5 years, they're only one generation behind. And I think the new Huawei phones are 7 nanometers. And the West is absolutely freaking out. They're thinking, how the hell did China make 7 nanometers? Because there's only one generation behind Apple's 5 nanometers. There is the 3 nanometers, but there's stories everywhere that these 3 nanometer chips are very they're overheating because these iPhones that are coming out, brand new iPhone 15s, all of them have an overheating problem, and you can't use it for more than an hour before it overheats. So that's a big problem. So I think 5 nanometers is pretty stable at the moment. So it's only one generation behind. And I've read a story that China is building a particle accelerator, and
yes,
because with these EUV machines, you need four components for the EUV machines. Three components China already has got. The three components, China is already the world leader. That is packaging. Packaging, China is already the world leader in that. The second one is the mirroring. And obviously, mirroring, China is already world leader in that. And because they've been sending satellites, they have their own satellite space stations. You need some really, really good mirrors for those kind of technologies. Then you need the EDA software as well. And the EDA software China was lacking in because America had all the EDA software licensing. So right now, Huawei and a few High Silicon and a few other companies are now building their own EDA software using RISC-V architecture or RISC-V architecture, which is completely different, which is it's basically free. It's free. You don't have to pay any licenses for it. So they're using that architecture to build this EDA software, and they can now design 5 nanometers chips with their own EDA software. And the final thing that the Chinese need is basically the lasers, and the lasers is what they were lacking. And laser is what the main instrument that you need for these EUV machines to work. So in order for China to kind of win in the laser part, I think they've already started building this particle accelerator, and they're going to build that, which is a massive circle. If I can show the picture of that, it would be great. But they're going to build a massive circle where you're going to have this particle accelerated laser going millions of per second, millions miles an hour per second, and they're going to have a row of EUV machines on both sides of this laser of this circle, and so they're going to have a factory with all of these EUV machines getting huge, really fast lasers coming through. They've got everything else, and once that factory is ready, they will be able to make 2 nanometers chips as a maximum, but they can go much lower, like 1 nanometers, or even beyond 1 nanometers as well. So when this factory is built, and I think they're going to be finished within 2025, and that's going to be a major leap, which is going to jump over what TSMC and any other company can produce. But they're also building quantum chips as well. They're also building photonic chips. So China's looking at many different technologies. They're also looking at using a different, not silicon, but they're going to use a different method as well. I can't remember what it's called. Begins with G. Um, I can't remember it, but they're going to use a different not silicon, but a completely chip made out of something else. Gallium, is it gallium or something? I can't remember. Gallium nitride or something like that. But yeah, I think within the next 2 3 years, you will see a big jump in the technology that China's going to come out with. I think already the West is freaking out. The United States, with the 7 nanometer chips in the Huawei phone, United States does not know what to do. They've pretty much, you know, they've put so many sanctions on Huawei. They've got no more sanctions to give to Huawei. There's nothing they can
Yeah,
do. There's nothing. They can't give any more sanctions because they've pretty much gone all out. And it's the same thing that's happened to Russia. They've gone all out on Russia. They can't put any more sanctions on Russia because they've basically run out of leverage. There's nothing more they can do. They've given it all. And I think the West is absolutely freaking out. Their sanctions are not working against Russia. They're not working against China. And recently, they're not working against Iran as well. Because Iran, I don't know if you looked at Iran's oil production. I think last month's figures came out that Iran has sold 3 billion barrels a day to China. And
yeah,
compare that to when Trump placed the sanctions at the time. When Trump placed the sanctions on Iran at the time, Iran was only able to build or sell about 800,000 barrels of oil a day, and production went all the way down. But now Iran's production has more than quadrupled. They are selling more oil, not just to China but around the world. India's starting to take Iranian oil. Even Europeans are taking Iranian oil as well. So Iran is making a lot of money at the moment. So their sanctions on Iran is not working. So the sanctions on North Korea are not working. And you've seen North Korea now signing a deal with Russia, and Russia's going to be supplying them with missiles. China's going to be supplying brand new planes to North Korea as well. They're going to give them J-10 planes, and these J-10 planes are kind of the older version of the J-10C, which is Chinese are using. So, but they're going to give huge amounts of J-10s to North Korea. So all of these, and then you have the Syrian leader coming to China last week. You have the Venezuelan leader coming to China last week. So this sends out a message to the world. It sends out a message that, you know what, if if you stand up for yourself, if you don't take American bullying, and if you don't sell your natural resources to America, if you stand for your freedom, if you don't sell out your country to United States, you can come to us and we'll trade with you. And that's the message that China's sending. And you will see that's why you see a lot of countries in Africa like Niger and other countries as well, and they're just moving away from the West because they know that they've got like they've got China who will help them economically, and they have Russia who can help them militarily. So it's like a match made in heaven. Russia can help countries militarily, and China can help countries economically. And if you don't sign up your country to the United States and become their pansy, there are other options, and that's what China and Russia are trying to tell the world. And I think it's a good thing. What do you think?
absolutely. AJ, we are already at 1.5 hour.
Okay, okay. So let's end there, and we'll catch up next time. We'll carry on.
Maybe we can take maybe a few questions. If people want to ask questions to AJ, myself, just before we wrap up, and any question you want to check, if you see any interesting question, you can put the Q in front of the question. No, I think you're right. It's just what you said just before. There's it's interesting because the West, the collective West, keeps on saying, "Oh, we want to isolate Russia and China." It's exactly the opposite that is happening. Actually, the collective West, which is 15% of the world's population, is being isolated by
Yeah,
itself. And
yeah,
I think it's desperate. You mentioned the sanctions. You know what? They've thrown so much that you know what is left. The next thing they will do would be like, oh, you know what? We are going to do something against Russia. We are going to write Russia without a capital letter. You see what I mean? It's like a children.
yeah,
Russia is going to be like small letter. It's so what? It's just like, what are you doing? I mean, are you that desperate? Come on, grow up. But I think we're gonna let's wrap it up here. Maybe you wanna tell my viewers where they can find you, Twitter, your account, your YouTube channel,
Oh yeah,
AJ.
so yeah, if you guys don't know me, my name's AJ. My channel is on YouTube. You can find me as PTE World Gone Crazy. Just type that in and you can find me. And yeah, I've not been doing much videos lately because I've been banned. But hopefully I can start. This is my first video in a couple of months. I did come on a few months ago. I was having issues at the time as well, and unfortunately, those issues were still lingering, so I couldn't make any more videos. But I'm back with Angelo now, and hopefully, I can start making videos again. So expect some new ones coming shortly.
Well, AJ, thank you very much. And let's do this again soon.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you, Angelo. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you soon.